Good morning.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Happy to be here. Happy to be here.
Great. Well, the point of today is because we often get asked a lot, what do the judges think about CASA? So I thought, what better than to actually hear from a judge? So first, Judge McClenahan, I want you to just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and your courtroom, what type of cases you would be seeing.
Okay. Well, I've been on the bench for just at 8 years now. Prior to that, I represented parents and children involved with the CPS system, Child Protective Service system. And before that, I represented Child Protective Services through the District Attorney's Office in Comal County. I have 2 counties that I preside over as an associate judge, and those 2 counties are Comal and Hayes. And as an associate judge, what that means is I'm not elected. I'm appointed to the position. And so that's why I can live in one county, work in others, and
Right.
I'm not having to run for election. And I love that part about it.
And your role here in Central Texas is a little special because you're part of a cluster court. Is that correct? That you only hear, for the most part, Child Protective Services cases?
That's correct. That's the only jurisdiction I have authority over are cases that involve Child Protective Services.
So when we're looking at those cases, explain kind of how does one get started? Child Protective Services brings the information to you, and what is your basically first decision that you have to make when these cases come to you?
They come to me a number of ways. The court hears cases where children are actually removed and where parental rights are at risk of being terminated. The court also hears cases where the cases are the parents and the family is just being monitored and offered services, and there's no risk to parental rights being restricted or lost. And those are sort of the lowest level of the cases. It's just to offer some help where a family needs help and children aren't really at danger. And so I hear those cases, and we hear those probably every couple of months. We'll do an update and see how those are going. And they usually last only about 6 months. Those are the very low level. And then after that, we have what we call a non-emergency removal. The children are not removed physically from the parents' home unless the parents have done something that causes them to be in an emergency situation. And so the non-emergency hearings are scheduled, and the children are usually safety planned with a family member or what we call a fictive kin. And so that's not an emergency situation. We get the children out of the situation, but they're with family, they're not in a foster home. And then we have the most extreme where we don't have we have an emergency situation, but we don't have a family member to take the children right away. They may have to go into a foster home. And so I'll receive what we call an affidavit in the petition for an emergency removal of a child. And I'll review that. And if I agree that this is an exigent situation where the children need to be removed, I sign the order, and CPS will go out along with sometimes law enforcement and remove the children from the home. That's unfortunate that it has to happen, but that depends on the severity of the situation.
So it sounds like from the beginning, the goal is to keep things as normal for the children, but there are some cases where these children are going to go into the state's care, at least temporarily. And those are the ones that CASA, or court-appointed special advocates, can be involved with. Is that correct? Those ones where the children are at home, we don't get involved in those cases.
That's correct. Those where the department or Child Protective Services have temporary managing conservatorship of the children. And then later, maybe if it's permanent managing conservatorship, CASA will remain on the case. But CASA didn't ordinarily get appointed to those cases where we're just working some services, leaving the children in the home and assisting the family.
So when a case comes to you and you think that maybe you need a little bit more information about it, how would you decide? Because I know not every case has a CASA volunteer. And sometimes we get asked, how come there's a CASA volunteer on this case and how come there's not one on this case? So how do you determine, because you as the judge are actually legally the only one who has the authority to appoint our volunteers to a case. I know anyone can come up and kind of recommend to you that we think CASA would be beneficial for this child, but you're the one who has that ultimate authority. So how do you decide which cases, when they're eligible, will receive a CASA volunteer, and why would they maybe not in some cases?
Okay, so we're talking only about those TMC, temporary managing conservatorship cases. When I know that we have CASA availability, there was a point in time in fairly recent history where we didn't have enough CASA volunteers. And so we had to use our CASA volunteers sparingly. So one of the things that the court has to decide on in making a final decision, and even temporary decisions as the case goes along, is what's in the best interest of children. As a judge, I can't go out and go do some research. I can't go visit the children. I can't talk to the children necessarily by myself. And so I need someone to do that for me. I can't be a witness in a case where I'm presiding. So CASAs come in as the guardian ad litem. They go visit the children, they visit the parents, they visit the schools. They get to know really what's going on in the child's life, and they can come to court and recommend what's in the best interest of children. Now, we would think that what's in the best interest of children would be their safety, of course, and we all agree on that. But when you have a child that's, let's say, a teenager, 13, 14, 15-year-old, those children will not always know what's in their best interest. They will want something. Let's say they'll want to go to the aunt or uncle who they know will allow them to do things that are illegal, maybe. Mm-hmm. So I need for you all to come tell me that placement's not going to be appropriate, Judge. So otherwise I wouldn't know that.
Because you are, some people don't understand this, you're not just responsible for court ordering the final decision of what happens to the child when the case is over, but you're also responsible for court ordering any services for the children to receive. So a lot of times it's up to you to know that things have to be ordered. So there are a lot of people involved in these cases. Who do you kind of go to for which information? We have Child Protective Services, attorneys. Can you just kind of tell me briefly what their role is so that we can understand the difference of why you need CASA in the courtroom if you have all these other people?
Certainly. Every child that is in the temporary custody of the department, the first thing that happens is they're appointed an attorney ad litem. And that attorney ad litem will serve two purposes, being the attorney and the guardian for the child, unless later I appoint CASA. But just for a minute, let's just say that there's an attorney that's doing both roles, serving both roles. And then there's the caseworker that is the one that's going to be the go-between between the parents, the children, the court, CASAs, and all the attorneys. And that caseworker's responsibility is not only to prepare a plan of service for the parents so we can alleviate the concerns that brought the children into care, they're responsible for making sure that the services that the children need are being arranged. Therapy, doctor's appointments. Many times children come into CPS care and they aren't current on their doctor's appointments, their dental appointments, so they make sure that gets done. And let's see, there's the attorney that represents the department. But attorneys aren't allowed to testify. So I get my information to make my decision from witnesses. So witnesses are the caseworkers, the parents, and the CASAs. And so if you've been appointed as a CASA on a case, I'm going to want to hear from you. I'm going to want to know what you have learned throughout between hearings, and if I need to make changes.
And what do you think, if you could talk to all the CASA volunteers out there, is there a certain kind of aspect of the case where you really feel like you as the judge need more information? Is it education? Is it placement? Is there up to date, as you mentioned, medical advocacy? What information would you really love to have from our CASA volunteers in your courtroom?
I like to keep children with a family member or a very close friend of the family. You know, I think we all grew up knowing someone to be somewhat like an aunt or an uncle, but they weren't really related. And so I hate that children get removed from their homes. That's just, it's heartbreaking. And it's so much easier on them if they can stay with a family member that they love and trust and they're safe with, or what we call fictive kin. And so placement to me is one of those really important things, because placement's going to take care of all those doctor's appointments. Placement's going to make sure they go to school. Placement's going to make sure they're fed and clothed and entertained and all those things. And they're also going to make sure, if they're also looking out for the best interest of those children, they're going to make sure that the access of the parents is appropriate. Sure. And so CASA can go and visit sometimes and check out what's going on in the home, and they're able to come back and report to me what I believe is an unbiased opinion as to what's in the best interest of the children.
Well, we hope to get you some more CASA volunteers. What would you say, for my last question, to someone with that question, what do judges think about CASA? How would you respond to that from your own personal opinion as a judge?
I think CASA is a wonderful organization, and I couldn't do my job without them. I haven't heard a judge ever say that they didn't want CASA in their court. We all do appreciate it, because you are our eyes and our ears, and you can walk around among all the parties, and you can let us know what's really happening, because people will come to court and they'll sometimes be a little apprehensive about saying something. And CASAs have been very bold, because number one, they're invested emotionally with the children because they get to know the children, but they also know what their role is. And we all, I think, should want what's in the best interest of children. So that's why I really believe in the CASA organization. And I do look forward to the day where we can have CASAs for even the cases where we've got tiny babies.
Yes.
Although they can't speak and have an opinion as to what's in their best interest, I think if we could have 100% saturation with CASA, that would be awesome.
Well, that is definitely our goal. So thank you so much. I hope that anyone out there who is listening to this, if it was a barrier, is your voice really heard? Is your time really worth it? You've heard from Judge McClenahan that you will definitely be heard and make a difference in the life of a child. So really appreciate you coming on with me.
Thank you, Eloise. It was good to see you.